Captain Reed watched the main screen with tired eyes. The small control room of New Haven's Defense Center had become his home for the past month. Sleep came rarely now, and when it did, nightmares followed. The orbital scans showed what everyone feared. The swarm was coming. Just 3 years ago, New Haven had been called the jewel of the Orion Arm. The colony thrived with 40,000 people from 12 different species. Its forests stretched across rolling plains. Its ocean sparkled under twin moons, and its cities blended perfectly with the natural world. Now they had 2 weeks before everything would be destroyed. Day 32 of Emergency Broadcast Communications Officer Jones said, her fingers dancing across the control panel. Dark circles hung under her eyes, matching Reed's own. Still no response from the Galactic Alliance. Reed nodded, unsurprised. He walked to the large window overlooking the colony's main city. The streets were crowded with people carrying what little they could take with them. The evacuation had started, though everyone knew there weren't enough ships to save them all. Keep broadcasting, Reed ordered. His voice was flat, emotionless. He had given up hope weeks ago, but couldn't let his crew see that leaders had to be strong even when the end was certain. Jones looked up from her station. Sir, do you think anyone is even listening? The question hung in the air. Reed had asked himself the same thing every day. The Galactic Alliance, the unified government of most advanced species, had never fully accepted humans. Earth was classified as a death world, a planet so dangerous that it produced tough, unpredictable species. Humans were tolerated but not trusted. Someone is always listening. Jones Reed finally said, whether they care enough to help is another matter. The warning about the swarm had come 3 months earlier. A trading ship had detected strange energy readings at the edge of their sector. 2 weeks later, the first colony went silent. Then another and another. The Alliance had sent observers, but no military aid. They classified it as a natural migration event. Regrettable, but not worth intervention. New Haven was too far from the Alliance core worlds to justify the expense of a rescue mission officer. Parker entered the room, his uniform wrinkled from too many hours on duty. Sister Evacuation Group C is ready to depart. That's another 100 people who will make it out. Reed nodded. Good. How many ships do we have left? Just 3 colony transports, maybe enough for another 2. 0 people. Parker didn't need to say what that meant. Over 35,000 would be left behind. Prioritize children and those with critical skills, Reed ordered, hating each word. Playing God wasn't what he signed up for when he became New Haven Security Chief, and make sure we have equal numbers from each species. I won't have anyone claiming humans saved only their own, though humans made up less than 20% of New Haven's population. Reed knew the rumors already spreading that human officers were giving preference to their own kind. He had ordered public for evacuation spots to stop such talk, but fear made people believe the worst. Jones suddenly straightened at her station. Captain, I'm picking up something on long-range scanners. Reed moved quickly to her side. The swarm. No, sir. Her voice trailed off as she adjusted the sensors. Sir, these are ships, hundreds of them. They just dropped out of FTL at the edge of our system. Reed felt his heart sink. Had the swarm moved faster than they predicted? Were they already out of time? Put it on the main screen. The large display flickered to life, showing a vast field of stars with hundreds of bright points moving in perfect formation. But these weren't the organic shapes of swarm vessels. These ships were angular, armored, and unmistakably human in design. That's Parker's voice was barely a whisper. That's an Earth fleet. Reed stared in disbelief. Earth had not built a real military fleet in the 60 years since joining the Galactic Alliance. The Treaty of Sol strictly limited human military vessels to defensive purposes within Earth's own solar system. Yet here they were, warships bearing the blue and green emblem of Earth's United Defense Force. Not exploration vessels, not trade ships, but warships built for one purpose only. How did they even hear us? Jones asked. We're 60 light years from Earth. Our distress call shouldn't have reached them yet. Reed had no answer. The main screen showed more ships dropping out of FTL, forming a defensive screen around New Haven's planet. He counted at least 300 vessels, many larger than anything the Alliance fielded. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Earth fleet. Jones reported, her voice now alive with hope. Audio only put it through a woman's voice, calm and commanding, filled the control room. New Haven Colony. This is Fleet Admiral Walker of the United Defense Force, ship Resolute. We received your distress. Call, prepare for immediate military assistance and limited evacuation support. Please transmit all data you have on the approaching swarm forces. Reed found his voice at last. This is Captain Reed, New Haven. Security Chief Admiral Walker, we're grateful for your arrival. But he hesitated, hardly believing what he was about to ask. What exactly are your intentions? The reply came without hesitation. Our intentions are to fight, Captain Reed. Earth protects its people. Reed exchanged looks with Jones. And Parker, none of them had expected this. The Alliance had written off New Haven as a lost cause, yet here was Earth, supposedly a minor power, sending a battle fleet larger than anything they had ever seen. Sir, Parker said quietly, they didn't come to evacuate us. Reed nodded slowly, a strange feeling growing in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it as something he hadn't felt in weeks. Hope no, he agreed, watching as the Earth ships moved into combat formation around their world. They came to fight in the following hours. The colony transformed. Fear gave way to purpose as Earth Marines landed and began setting up defensive positions. Evacuation plans shifted to defense preparation. The hopelessness that had gripped New Haven for weeks began to lift as night fell. Reed stood on the landing pad, watching Earth drop ships deliver soldiers and equipment. The sky above was filled with the silhouettes of warships, hundreds of them standing guard over a colony that even their own government had abandoned. Jones joined him, looking up at the stars. Why would Earth risk so much for us? There are only a few thousand humans here. Reed didn't have an answer. Then he would learn it in the days to come. As he worked alongside the Earth forces preparing for the swarm's arrival, humans had evolved on a world that tried to kill them at every turn. They understood something the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. Sometimes survival meant fighting. Battles that others deemed hopeless. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they hadn't come to run. Fleet Admiral Walker stood on the bridge of the UDF Resolute, the largest battleship ever built by human hands. The massive vessel stretched nearly 2 km from bow to stern, its hull marked with scars from previous battles. Unlike the sleek artistic ships of the Galactic Alliance, Earth vessels were built for function. Not Beauty Walker was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. She studied the holographic display showing New Haven's solar system, her focus on the red mass approaching from the galactic south, the swarm time until swarm contact. She asked approximately 72 hours. Admiral replied, Tactical Officer. Green, he was young for his position, but Walker trusted him. Their current speed suggests they'll reach the colony in just under 3 days. Walker nodded her face, revealing nothing of her thoughts and the colony's status population of 40. 0, sir, mixed species, about 35,000 Galactic Alliance citizens and 5,000 humans. Green hesitated before adding, they've already started evacuations, but they only have transport capacity for about 5,000 total, so the Alliance abandoned 35,000 of their own people. Walker's voice was flat, but everyone on the bridge heard the disgust in it. Not surprising status of our ground forces. First wave of Marines has already landed, Admiral Colonel West reports. They're establishing defensive positions around the main settlement. Engineering teams are setting up automated defense systems. Walker turned to Communications Officer Bell. Have we received any response from the colony's leadership? Yes, Admiral. Captain Reed is requesting transport to the Resolute. He wants to meet with you. Personally, grant his request. Have him brought to the command briefing room as soon as he arrives. Walker took a last look at the display at the swarm of red dots slowly moving toward New Haven, and send all available data on the swarm to my personal terminal. I want to know exactly what we're facing. An hour later, Captain Reed stepped onto the Resolute for the first time. He had never been on a human military vessel. Before, the differences from Alliance ships were striking, where Alliance vessels were designed for comfort and efficiency. With wide corridors and soft lighting, the Resolute felt like a fortress. The hallways were narrow but reinforced the doors, thick enough to seal off sections during battle, and every surface designed to withstand damage. The Marine escorting him, Sergeant Diaz, moved with the easy confidence of someone used to higher gravity. Earth's pull was 2 times that of New Haven, and Reed could feel the difference as they walked. The Admiral is waiting for you, Diaz said, stopping outside a heavy door marked Command Briefing. She doesn't like to waste time, sir. Reed nodded his thanks and entered. The room inside a large table dominated the center, surrounded by chairs built for human frames. Admiral Walker stood studying a three-dimensional projection of New Haven's planet. "Captain Reed," she said without looking up. "Thank you for coming." Please sit." Reed took a seat, feeling oddly small in the human-sized chair. "Admiral Walker, I must first express the colony's gratitude for your arrival, but I have many questions." Walker finally looked at him, her eyes sharp and evaluating. "Afshri, imagine you do. Let's start with the most important ones. Yes, we came to fight. No, we're not just here for the humans. Yes, Earth is aware. This violates certain provisions of the Treaty of Sol. No, we don't care." Reed blinked, surprised by her directness. "How did you even receive our distress call? We're 60 light years from Earthwalker tapped a control, and the projection changed to show a small science vessel. The UDF Einstein was testing new FTL communication technology in the next sector. Over. They picked up your signal 3 weeks ago and relayed it to Earth Command. We dispatched the fleet immediately. 3 weeks. The Alliance Council has been debating whether to send aid for twice that long." Reed couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. "The Alliance debates." Earthax Walker changed the projection again, showing the approaching swarm. "Now, I need everything you have on these creatures. Scans, observations, patterns of attack, everything." Reed hesitated. "I can't share Alliance intelligence with Earth forces. That would violate Colonial Security Protocol 35. 6 Walker finished for him, the protocol that also requires the Alliance to provide military support to colonies under direct threat." She leaned forward. "Captain, look around you. Your own government has abandoned New Haven. They've written off 40,000 lives as an acceptable loss. We are your only hope, and we need to know what we're fighting." Reed stared at her, understanding the choice before him. Share classified information with Earth, violating Alliance regulations, or withhold it and potentially doom the colony. "The Alliance will court-martial me for this," he said quietly. Walker's expression softened slightly. "Only if they win, and only if anyone tells them." After a moment, Reed reached into his pocket and removed a small data crystal. "This contains everything we've observed about the swarm. 3 months of scans, attack patterns, biological analysis from recovered specimens. Our scientists have been studying them since they first appeared in this sector." Walker took the crystal, her eyes showing respect. "Thank you, Captain. This will save lives at better." Reed replied, "Because I just committed treason to get it to you." The Admiral slotted the crystal into a reader. Immediately, the projection changed to show detailed scans of swarm vessels and creatures. Walker studied them with intense focus. "They're not a single species," she observed. "They're a collective, multiple species working together like a superorganism." Reed wondered. "That's our theory. They share a hive mind, somehow kill enough of them, and the rest become disorganized, but only temporarily, and their numbers are overwhelming. Numbers alone don't win battles." Walker said, "Not against a prepared enemy." She called up another image, this one showing the interior structure of a swarm ship. "Their vessels are partially organic. That gives them an advantage in self-repair, but also makes them vulnerable to certain types of attacks for the next hour." They analyzed the data together. Reed was impressed by the Admiral's quick understanding and tactical insights. She asked questions no Alliance officer had thought to ask, looking for weaknesses and patterns others had missed. As their meeting concluded, Walker walked Reed to the door. "My Marines will coordinate with your security forces. We'll start moving critical civilians to our support ships tomorrow, but our primary mission remains defense." "Do you really think we can win?" Reed asked, finally voicing the question that had been on his mind since the Earth fleet arrived. Walker's answer was simple. The swarm has never faced humans in significant numbers. Before, they've never fought death. Worlders, they evolved to consume. We evolved to survive. We'll show them the difference." As Reed prepared to return to the colony, Walker added, "One more thing, Captain. There's something you should understand about humans. The Alliance calls Earth a death world because our planet tried to kill us at every turn. We learned to fight, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. When something threatens our survival, or the survival of those we protect, we don't run, we stand our ground." Reed thought about this as he shuttled back to New Haven. On the surface, the colony was transforming Earth Marines. Empowered armor were setting up defensive positions. Engineers were constructing weapon emplacements. Supply ships were unloading equipment. The fear that had gripped the colony for weeks was changing into something else. Determination the humans hadn't. come to rescue them or evacuate them. They had come to make a stand that night. Reed watched from his office window as human dropships continued to deliver soldiers and equipment. Earth was committing everything to this fight, a fight the Alliance had deemed unwinnable. Jones joined him, watching the activity below. The human Marines say they faced worse odds before. Have they? Reed asked. Jones shrugged. They say their whole history is facing worse odds, something about evolving on a planet that tried to kill them every day. She paused. Do you think we can win, Reed? Thought about Walker's words about Deathers and what it meant to evolve on a hostile planet. I don't know, he admitted, but for the first time, I think we have a chance below. Them Earth soldiers continued their preparations. The battle for New Haven was about to begin. Lieutenant Tess Davis wiped sweat from her forehead as she finished installing the last defense turret. The twin suns of New Haven beat down mercilessly, making her powered armor uncomfortably hot despite its cooling systems. She had been working non-stop for 18 hours, but there was no time to rest. The swarm would arrive in less than 2 days. Power connection complete, she reported, stepping back. To admire her work, the heavy plasma cannon was one of 20 such weapons her team had installed around the colony's main city. They weren't elegant Earth technology, rarely was, but they would deliver devastating firepower when needed. Will it be enough? Asked Miller, one of the colony's engineers who had been helping her team. He was a tall, thin man with four-fingered hands, not human, but similar enough in appearance that they could work side by side without special accommodations. Davis checked the weapons targeting system before answering by itself. No, nothing is enough against the swarm, but it's part of a larger plan. She pointed toward the hills where other teams were setting up larger weapons. Those are mass drivers they'll launch. Metal slugs into orbit at extreme speeds, and up there, she pointed to the sky where Earth ships moved in formation. They're placing mines and preparing ship-based weapons. It's all connected. Miller looked unconvinced. The Alliance says the swarm can't be beaten, that their numbers are too great. Davis snorted. The Alliance says a lot of things. She began packing up her tools. We've been in this situation before. Fighting the swarm, fighting when others said it was hopeless. Davis shouldered her pack. It's kind of our specialty. As they walked back toward the command center, Miller asked the question that many colonists had been wondering. Why did you come? Earth has no formal alliance with us? Most of us aren't even human. Davis looked at him. There are humans here, that's enough. But to risk your entire battle fleet, Earth is different. She explained most species in the alliance evolved. In peaceful environments, we evolved. While being hunted, it changes your perspective. Miller considered this the Deathworld thing. That's why humans are willing to fight battles. Others run from. Davis smiled. We don't know how to give up sometimes. That's our greatest weakness today. It might be your greatest hope in orbit above New Haven. Admiral Walker was holding a final briefing with her ship captains. The holographic display showed the positions of every Earth vessel the colony below. And the approaching swarm. The swarm will arrive in 38 hours, she told the assembled officers. Based on Captain Reed's data and our own analysis, we expect their force to consist of approximately 3 0-0 vessels of various sizes. Captain Torres of the UDF Dauntless whistled. That's more than 3-to-1 odds against us. Walker nodded. Conventional wisdom says they can't be beaten. The Alliance strategy is evacuation and containment. Let them have what they want and hope they move on. Her expression hardened. But we're not the Alliance. We evolved on a death world where everything tried to kill us. We know what it means to fight for survival. She expanded the tactical display. The swarm has never encountered humans in significant numbers before. They don't know what we're capable of, and that gives us an advantage. Her plan was bold. Instead of attempting to defend the colony directly, they would use it as bait, drawing the swarm into a carefully prepared trap where Earth ships could leverage their superior firepower phase. One Walker continued, highlighting sections of space around New Haven. We've placed cloaked antimatter mines throughout these approach vectors. When the swarm enters the system, they'll hit these first. Captain Lee of the UDF Thunderchild raised a hand. Won't they detect the mines? Not according to the data. The swarm relies primarily on biological sensors. They detect life energy emissions and heat our mines emit. None of these. They should be invisible until they detonate. She moved to the next phase of the plan. Once the initial wave is disrupted, our fleet will emerge from hiding behind New Haven's moon. Our railguns and kinetic weapons will target there. Larger vessels based on Reed's data, the swarm's biological hulls are highly resistant to energy weapons, but vulnerable to physical impacts. The captains nodded. This matched what they had observed in previous smaller encounters. Meanwhile, Walker. Continued ground-based mass drivers will create a barrier of hypervelocity projectiles in low orbit, preventing smaller swarm ships from landing for those that make it through. We have marine units and defense turrets positioned around the colony. Finally, she revealed the most daring part of the plan for Phase 3. We've converted 30 unmanned freighters into giant bombs loaded with experimental fusion devices. When the swarm commits their full force, we'll lure them into position and detonate. These ships, which should eliminate a significant portion of their fleet. The room was silent as the captains absorbed the plan. Questions Walker asked Torres spoke First Admiral with respect. This is unlike any battle plan the UDF has ever implemented. The risk to our fleet is acceptable compared to the alternative Walker finished for him. If the swarm takes New Haven, they'll have a foothold in this sector. The next colony is just 10 light years away with a population of over 100. 0-0 after that, they have a clear path to 3 more human settlements. She looked around the room. We stop them here or we fight an even worse battle later. I don't see another option. Do you no one offered an alternative? Good return to your ships. And prepare your crews. Dismissed. As the captains filed out, Captain Reed entered the briefing room. He had watched the presentation from the back. That's your plan? He asked. Use the colony as bait. Walker met his gaze. It gives us the best chance of success. And if it fails, if the swarm breaks through, then we move to emergency evacuation and hold them off as long as possible. Walker's voice was calm, but it won't fail. Reed studied her face. How can you be so sure? Because in all recorded history, the swarm has never faced a united human defense force. They've picked off isolated colonies or fought alliance peacekeeping ships. They've never fought humans who came ready for war. Reed considered this the confidence of the Earth forces. Was unlike anything he had seen in the alliance military. They weren't just following orders. They believed they could win. Your people are preparing like they've done this before. He observed. Walker's smile was grim. Humans have been fighting desperate battles since before we left Earth. Our history is full of smaller forces defeating larger ones through strategy, sacrifice, and sheer stubbornness. It's in our blood. Yearning on the surface, Davis led her team to their next assignment, rigging the colony's main bridge with explosives as a last resort. If the swarm broke through as they worked, colonists were being organized into emergency response teams. Those who couldn't fight were moved to secure bunkers or prepared for possible evacuation. The colony that had been paralyzed with fear just days ago now hummed with purpose. Human Marines worked alongside colony security forces, teaching them tactics for fighting. The swarm up close aimed for the central nerve cluster. A Marine sergeant explained to a group of colony guards, pointing to a diagram of a swarm warrior. Energy weapons don't work well against their outer shell, but physical projectiles will penetrate. If you don't have guns, use blades or clubs, anything that can crush or pierce. Davis watched as the colonists listened intently. Many were species the Alliance considered peaceful by nature, evolved on safe worlds without predators or many natural threats, yet here they were, learning to fight. Will they be ready? Miller asked, joining her. Davis shrugged. Ready or not, the fight is coming, but having a chance is better than having none around them. The colony transformed buildings became fortified. Positions, streets were rigged with traps for ground forces. Civilians learned emergency protocols in orbit. Earth's fleet finished their preparations. Ships moved into hiding positions. Weapons were charged. Crews rested as much as possible before the coming battle on the Resoluti's bridge. Admiral Walker watched the final pieces of her plan fall into place. The swarm was now just 30 hours away. Soon they would learn what it meant to face Deathworlders in battle. Earth hadn't sent aid to New Haven. They hadn't sent evacuation ships. They had sent their fleet, and with it a message to the galaxy. Humans protected their own, and anyone under their protection, no matter the odds. The battle for New Haven was about to begin. They're here. These words echoed through the command center as New Haven's long-range sensors detected the first wave of swarm ships entering the system. Captain Reed stood beside Admiral Walker on the bridge of the Resolute, watching as the enemy appeared on the main display. A vast cloud of organic vessels that seemed to darken space itself. So many. Reed whispered even after weeks of preparation, the sight was terrifying. Walker's face remained calm. Numbers aren't everything. All ships maintained communication, silence weapon systems on standby. The Earth fleet was hidden behind New Havens. Moon invisible to the approaching swarm on the planet below. Defense systems were ready, but dormant, emitting no energy signatures that might give away their positions. The swarm moved closer, following exactly the path Walker had predicted. They ignored standard communication attempts and headed directly toward the colony. Just as they had done in previous attacks. They're entering the minefield in 30 seconds. Tactical Officer Green reported. Walker nodded. All ships prepare for Phase 1. Reed held his breath as the first swarm vessels crossed the invisible line. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to explode. The cloaked antimatter mines detonated in rapid sequence, creating a spectacular series of explosions that rippled through the front lines of the swarm. Hundreds of their smaller vessels disappeared, instantly vaporized by the tremendous energy release. Direct hit. Green called out estimate 30% of their advanced force destroyed, but the swarm was vast. The remaining ship simply adjusted course and continued forward, flowing around the devastation like water around rocks. They're adapting, Walker observed. Just as we expected, execute Phase 2 across the bridge. Communications Officer Bell relayed. The order: all ships commence attack, ground batteries stand by. The human fleet emerged from hiding, their massive railguns launching hypervelocity rounds that tore through the swarm ships. Unlike energy weapons that the swarm's carapaces could resist, these kinetic weapons shattered their hulls like glass on the planet below. Lieutenant Davis watched from her command post as the battle erupted in orbit. The night sky lit up with explosions visible even through the atmosphere. Ground batteries online. She reported over the comm, awaiting targets. She didn't have to wait long. The swarm, now fully aware of the threat, divided their forces, half engaging the human fleet while the rest accelerated toward the planet. They're making their run, Davis announced. All batteries prepared to fire. As the swarm approached New Haven's atmosphere, the ground-based mass drivers activated giant electromagnetic cannons, hurled tons of superheated metal into low orbit, creating a deadly barrier that shredded dozens of approaching swarm vessels. But the swarm's numbers were overwhelming, though they were dying by the thousands. They continued their advance. Several managed to slip through the barrage, streaking toward the colony like falling stars. Impact imminent, Davis shouted as her tracking systems showed swarm ships breaking through. All personnel prepare for ground engagement. The first swarm vessel crashed 2 kilometers from the colony's edge, its organic hull splitting. Opened to release dozens of insectoid warriors. Each stood over 2 meters tall with multiple limbs ending in natural weapons claws, stingers, and cutting edges. Davis activated her powered armor and checked her weapons. All units form defensive lines, remember? You're training physical damage. Only energy weapons are ineffective. As more swarm ships landed, human marines moved to intercept. This was where Earth forces truly showed their strength. The powered armor suits enhanced their already considerable physical abilities, letting them match the swarm warriors in close combat. Davis led her squad toward the nearest crash site, the ground shaking beneath her feet as more swarm ships impacted nearby. Through her helmet display, she could see swarm warriors pouring out of their broken vessels, moving with unnatural coordination as their hive mind directed them. Engage, she ordered, and her squad opened fire with explosive rounds and armor-piercing bullets. The battle quickly became chaotic. Swarm warriors charged in waves, seemingly unconcerned with their own survival. For everyone the Marines killed, 3 more took its place, but the humans held their ground, their training and technology giving them an edge in the brutal combat. Miller, the colony engineer, had joined a support unit providing ammunition and medical aid to the front lines. He watched in awe as the human Marines fought with a ferocity he had never imagined possible from any species. They're not even afraid, he said to a fellow colonist as they rushed supplies forward. They're from Earth, his companion replied, as if that explained everything. And perhaps it did. In orbit, the space battle had become a swirling melee. The swarm, realizing the threat, concentrated their attacks on the larger human vessels. The UDF Dauntless was surrounded by enemy ships, its hull breached in multiple sections. Dauntless is taking heavy damage. Green reported Captain Torres requests immediate assistance. Walker studied the tactical display. Negative, all ships maintain positions. The swarm is committing everything now, exactly as we wanted. She turned to Bell, signal the freighters execute final phase across the battlefield. 30 unmarked freighters that had remained stationary suddenly activated their engines. They moved into predetermined positions throughout the swarm fleet, appearing to flee. In panic, the swarm, sensing easy prey, pursued and surrounded them freighters in position. Bell confirmed detonation in 10 seconds. Walker turned to Reed. "You might want to shield your eyes, Captain," before Reed could ask why the tactical display flashed. Brilliant white, the freighters packed with experimental fusion bombs detonated simultaneously. The explosion was visible from the surface of New Haven, a new sun briefly appearing in the sky when the light faded and sensors could function again. The majority of the swarm fleet had been vaporized. The remaining vessels, suddenly cut off from their collective intelligence, fell into disorganized retreat phase 3. Complete Green reported, his voice filled with awe. Enemy fleet effectiveness reduced by approximately 80%. Walker allowed herself a small smile. "Direct all remaining ships to pursue and eliminate any retreating vessels. We can't allow any to escape, and report back on the ground." The effect was immediate. Without direction from the hive, the swarm warriors became disoriented. Their attacks lost coordination, making them vulnerable to the organized human forces. Davis and her marines pressed the advantage, methodically eliminating the confused creatures. "Push forward." She ordered, "Don't give them time to regroup." By dawn, the battle was over. The remaining swarm forces had been eliminated, both in space and on the ground. The colony had suffered damage from the fighting, but remained largely intact, most importantly. The civilian casualties were minimal. The defensive plan had worked. Davis stood on a hilltop overlooking the colony. As the sun rose, her armor scratched and dented from the night's fighting. Miller joined her, looking out at the smoking remains of swarm vessels scattered across the landscape. "We won," he said, disbelief in his voice. "We actually won." Davis removed her helmet, letting the morning breeze cool her face. "Did you doubt we would?" The Alliance said the swarm couldn't be defeated, that they were a force of nature. The Alliance was UONs. Wrong. Davis looked up at the sky where Earthships still moved in formation, securing the system. The swarm never faced humans before. They didn't know what they were getting into in orbit. Admiral Walker and Captain Reed stood on the Resolutees observation deck looking down at New Haven. The planet still showed scars from the battle impact, craters from crashed swarm ships, damaged buildings, burned forests, but it had survived. "The cleanup will take weeks," Reed said, "but thanks to you, we have time for that now." Walker nodded. "My engineers will assist with repairs. We've also sent word to Earth requesting additional forces to establish a permanent defense base in this system." Reed looked at her in surprise. "Permanent? But the Alliance abandoned you." Walker reminded him, "They've lost the right to complain about who protects you." Now below them, rescue ships were already landing to help the injured and begin repairs. The battle for New Haven was over. Earth had made its stand and won 3 days after the battle. Captain Reed stood with Admiral Walker on the observation deck of the Resolute, watching as repair crews worked to restore New Haven's infrastructure. The colony was alive with activity. Earth engineering teams worked alongside colonists to rebuild damaged buildings. Medical ships had arrived from Earth bringing supplies, and help for the injured defense platforms were being constructed in orbit, creating a permanent shield around the planet. "The Alliance will be here within a week," Reed said quietly. "They're sending a diplomatic delegation to formally thank Earth for the intervention." Walker's laugh was short and without humor. Now their interested only took destroying the swarm fleet to get their attention. Reed turned to face her. "You changed everything. You know, the Alliance has been running from the swarm for decades. You proved they can be fought. We're from Earth." Walker replied simply, "We don't have. The luxury of running our planet is all we have." A junior officer approached with a data tablet. Walker reviewed it and nodded. "The cleanup operation is ahead of schedule. We'll have the colony fully secured before the Alliance arrives." Reed hesitated before asking the question that had been bothering him. Why did Earth really come? There were only a few thousand humans here, hardly worth risking your entire battle fleet. Walker was silent for a long moment before answering when humans first joined. "The galactic community, we were labeled as Deathworlders, dangerous, unpredictable, barely civilized. The Alliance keeps us at arm's length, afraid of what we might do." She gestured toward the colony below. "But being from a death world means understanding. Something the rest of the galaxy doesn't. Survival requires sacrifice, and sometimes fighting for others is how you save yourself." She handed him a data pad. "Earth is formally offering military protection to New Haven and any other colonies in this sector. We're building a permanent base in this system. Reed was stunned. The Alliance won't allow it. The Alliance abandoned you. Walker reminded him, and now they know what humans can do. They can either accept our help or watch as we protect our interests anyway. 1 week later, Lieutenant Davis stood at attention as the Alliance diplomatic vessel landed at New Haven's newly rebuilt spaceport. The massive ship was a stark contrast to the human vessel's sleek, elegant, and clearly designed for comfort rather than combat. Ambassador Wilson, Earth's representative to the Alliance, had arrived the day before to lead negotiations. Now he stepped forward to greet the Alliance delegation as they descended from their ship ambassador. Lee Wilson said, offering the traditional Alliance greeting, "Welcome to New Haven. We're honored by your presence." Ambassador Lee was tall and thin with the characteristic blue skin of the Terran people, one of the founding species of the Alliance. His expression as he looked around the spaceport was carefully neutral, but Davis could see the surprise in his eyes. "Ambassador Wilson," Lee replied, "the Alliance Council extends its gratitude for Earth's intervention in this matter." Wilson smiled. "We were happy to help our friends in their time of need." Lee's gaze moved to the human marine standing at attention, then to the Earth vessels visible in the sky above. "I see you've established quite a presence here. A necessary security measure," Wilson replied smoothly. "The swarm might return. The Alliance has monitoring stations throughout this sector. Lee said we can provide early warning if needed, just as you did this time." The words came from Governor Price, New Haven, civilian leader who had joined the greeting party. Her tone was polite, but carried an unmistakable edge. Lee had the grace to look uncomfortable. "The council has authorized me to extend formal apologies for the delayed response to your distress calls. There were procedural complications. Price repeated. 40,000 lives were at stake, and thanks to Earth's assistance, those lives were saved." Lee said quickly, "The Alliance Council wishes to express its deepest gratitude to Earth for its timely action." Davis watched the diplomatic dance with interest. The Alliance representatives were clearly uncomfortable with the human military presence, but equally clearly unwilling to challenge it directly. Later that day, as formal negotiations began in the colony's main administrative building, Davis found herself assigned to the security detail. She stood at the back of the room, listening as Ambassador Wilson presented Earth's position. Earth is formally extending its protection to New Haven and all colonies in this sector. Wilson stated, "We are establishing a permanent defense base in this system with the full consent of the colonial government." Ambassador Lee frowned. "That would violate several provisions of the Treaty of Sol, which limits Earth's military operations to its home system. The treaty also guarantees alliance protection for all member colonies." Wilson countered that protection was not provided. "The treaty has already been broken, not by us, but by the Alliance." Governor Price nodded in agreement. "New Haven has voted unanimously to accept Earth's protection. We've amended our colonial charter accordingly." Lee looked alarmed. "Governor, such actions require approval from the Alliance Council. You can't unilaterally." "We just did." Price interrupted. "When the Alliance abandoned us, you lost the right to dictate our security arrangements." The negotiations continued for hours, eventually reaching a compromise. Earth would maintain a limited defensive presence in the New Haven system, while the Alliance would increase its own security patrols in neighboring sectors. Both sides knew it was mostly for show. Earth had no intention of leaving, and the Alliance had no way to force them out without risking open conflict. As the meeting concluded, Davis was approached by Miller, who had been serving as a technical advisor to the colonial government. "So is it true?" he asked quietly. "Earth is staying." Davis nodded. "We're not going anywhere. Construction of the permanent base starts tomorrow." Miller smiled. "Good. The colony feels safer knowing you're here." He hesitated before adding, "I've been thinking about what you said about humans evolving on a world that tried to kill you. I think I understand now why you fight so hard. It's not just about being tough." Davis replied, "It's about knowing that sometimes survival means standing your ground, even when the odds are against you." A month later, Reed stood with Walker on a hillside overlooking the colony. New Haven had been transformed. The damage from the battle was repaired, and new construction expanded the colony's boundaries. Earth Defense Force flags flew alongside Alliance banners, a visible symbol of the new order. "The Alliance is still complaining," Reed commented, "but they're not going to do anything about it." Walker nodded. "They're too afraid of what would happen if they pushed us, and they should be, because you Fight, because we'd win. Walker replied simply, the battle against the swarm proved what humans have always known. We're stronger than the galaxy gives us credit for. In the years that followed, more colonies would reach out to Earth rather than the Alliance. When threatened, Earth's military expanded beyond its home system, establishing bases throughout human-settled regions. The term Deathworlder changed from an insult to a mark of respect. The swarm eventually returned to the edges of Alliance space, but they carefully avoided systems protected by human forces. They had learned what the rest of the galaxy was starting to understand. When the Deathworlders came, they didn't send aid packages or evacuation ships. They sent fleets, and the galaxy was safer for it.